Celia? Hello, Celia?
Hi there.
Oh, that's Bill. I think that's working.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So, Celia, our show is called the We Don't Know Show because there's many things we don't know. And one of them is how the phones work in this studio. We tend to use Twitter quite a lot. And that we're more or less okay with.
Yes.
But the twittering, the twittering is okay. The phone, but this is working all right. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I can hear you. You can hear me. Then we're good. And I like the Twitter. I've got it open now.
Okay. Well, that's great. So, you're Celia Delaney, and we are We Not Know. If everybody that's listening is also on Twitter, you can join in, and that should be okay.
Yeah. Is there a hashtag, or they just join in with @Phonic FM?
Right. So, and would you also just explain a little bit the technique you're using? Because you're not using a phone as such. You've got a microphone attached to a device. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm sitting here with a desktop computer, an iMac, as it happens, not to plug Apple products, of course. But and then I bought a microphone which I have attached to my desk, and it plugs in with a USB to the actual computer, and then I can phone using my browser. I have a CRM system called HubSpot. If anyone hasn't heard of HubSpot, they're really great. You can design websites with them, and you can have your customer relationship management system, CRM system with them, which just means I store all my contacts, all my data. Of course, we have to be so careful with data these days with GDPR regulations. So I store all my data very carefully with HubSpot. They're excellent. And that allows me to make calls over the internet like this. And I do a number of podcasts and interviews, and I decided I had to get a better microphone and a better setup. So here we are.
Right. Well, that is great. So you don't mind if we verge off into sales talk and tech and stuff every so often? Not all the time.
Do my best to keep up.
Well, just that we're sort of interested in radio, and this is a 2-hour FM show, so it should work on that basis as well. But we're also interested in how we take out little bits and put it into social media and how all that sort of stuff works.
Yeah.
And you seem to be very into that. You've just put out a YouTube clip about your show in Exeter.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm coming down to the inaugural Exeter Fringe, which starts on Friday, and I'll be travelling down on Friday. But I have a show on Monday night at the Barnfield Theatre Studio. So I'm just doing one performance within the Fringe, which takes place across the whole week in Exeter. And it's full of theatre and music and poetry and all kinds of different forms of performing art. So I'm really excited about that. So they asked me to make a little video trailer, and I put it up on YouTube. And I'm very lucky that I have a team of people that work with me that do all the hard graft of the social media. I'm afraid I don't actually press buttons very often.
No, but you understand it all. Yes,
I do understand it all, because I used to have to do it myself. And then as I got more successful, I was able to ask other people to be on the team to do it. And that is an absolute delight, because it gives me a lot more time to go out and be on stage. And I'm a keynote speaker, I host award ceremonies and so on. And it just gives me time to be the show pony out there, and then the team can do some of that other supporting work, which is absolutely lovely.
Right. So how long have you got to spend with us today? Because we sort of finish about 12, but
I can be here till 12.
Okay, well that's brilliant. We can go back in time completely then. Just to explain, Kathy Towers, who is in this same time slot alternate weeks on Phonic FM, we took over her show last week because she's on holiday, was on holiday then. And she said that you might phone in at that time, so that's how that didn't happen for various reasons. So that's how this comes about.
Yeah, that's great. And Kathy's a very dear friend. I know her because I used to live in Exeter. I was in Exeter for a decade, and she came on one of my speaking courses. I coach people in public speaking, and I used to run something called the Speakers Academy in Exeter, and she was one of the people that came through that. And now is a very confident public speaker, and in fact I see her up in London from time to time, because we're both members of the Professional Speaking Association, the PSA, and she just took part in our annual competition, which is called Speaker Factor, and she came second in London, which was an excellent achievement. So she's really come on leaps and bounds over the years. Lovely to see.
So I'm sort of getting the sense of various sort of common factors, that there's a sort of business background to it all, so that and there's a sort of coaching or development aspect to it, and then it goes off into music and comedy and those sort of areas. Yeah,
that's right. I try to blend everything together. I make my living out of being funny, but I do that largely in the corporate sphere. So I'm a corporate comedian, if you like. I tend to host award ceremonies and or be the after-dinner entertainment. I might do both in one evening or just one of those things, and there might then be another comedian doing the entertainment, often somebody from the TV, often a man. But there you go. So I introduce them and they might be the headliner. So I do that, and I'm also a keynote speaker who's funny. I'm hired to either open or close a conference. So that's what I do most of the time, is be a comedian in the corporate sphere. Some of the time I'm on the circuit being a comedian and playing music. I'm a musical comedian. I write my own songs. So I make all of that work together as one business. And it is very much a business. I've been doing it for over a decade now. Although the comedy has come more recently than that, as they have only been funny for about the past 5 years. Before that, I was perfectly serious. So,
right.
She will, and I just decided that was it. I was funny.
Right. So go back to HR, because we sort of set up the show, and then we were thinking about it, and then we couldn't find you last week, so we found Sarah Archer did a podcast based on a talk with you.
Yeah.
And so we played some of that.
I saw that. Thank you.
And that sort of explains more about your early situation when you were working in HR. Is that right? So it's a sort of training world that you're coming from.
Yeah, I used to have a serious job. So when I left university, I read psychology at Oxford, and I was very lucky to do that. It was delightful. And then I left, and my mum was very keen that I didn't go on the stage, or at least not straight away. She was very desperate for me to get a job that I could fall back on. And so I went into HR with Unilever, and I did a couple of years being on their graduate scheme. So I became an HR manager, and I looked after a factory site in Norwich, the Coleman's Mustard Factory, which Unilever had bought at the time. It's now sold it again. And I did that for about 7 months, I think it was. I was the manager there. And then I shocked everybody by running off to drama school. So I went to drama school when I was 23. And I've never looked back. I've had over 2 decades in entertainment now, making my living from the performing arts. And that's my true love. That's who I really am. So I really love it. I can be an HR professional, but it really requires too serious a face. You know?
Right, I can understand that.
Not me.
Yeah, so that's something you've sort of got out of, but go back into on a sort of guest basis.
I do, yeah. So I have done interim contracts when something really interesting has come along. I nearly did a job with the police, or got quite far along the selection process to head up some learning and development in the police, and I kind of regret not doing it actually, because I love the police as a client. I do quite a lot of speaking to them and training with them still to this day on presentation skills, and also about being an inspirational woman and that kind of thing. Often speak to a lot of female leaders in the police. So I think they're amazing, the job that they do. I'm a big fan. But then I had the chance to do that, or I could go and work in a luxury hotel. I had a bit of a background with the Dorchester collection, having trained some of them in communication skills stuff a few years ago. It's a hard job, but someone's got to swan into the Dorchester and drink champagne. And so they were very kind enough to give me a reference. And so I ended up working at the Bulgari Hotel, or the Bulgari Hotel, as they would say, in-house. And I did that on an interim contract for about 9 months. That was about 4 years ago now. And that was great. I taught everybody there that was there at the time, taught them about how to sell, when you're in the hotel, and communicating with the customer, what they would call the guest. But to be honest, the caliber of people that work in that kind of hotel are so incredible already they've often come from the Savoy or the Lanesborough or Claridge's. They've come from somewhere already that's in luxury, and they're amazing at their jobs already. I honestly had almost nothing to teach them, but it was just more a case of encouraging them to keep doing what they were doing. So it was a lovely time, and I do miss all the team there. So hello to them.
Right, but when I say dropping back into it, it's as if you're doing a sort of guest presentation at an event or introducing a management speaker of some sort. The fact you understand all the corporate end is helping you in that sort of situation.
Oh, 100%. And, kudos to my mother, really. Although I wasn't really going to use HR as a profession to fall back on, that said, I actually have, done a couple of those interim contracts, and it's helped me out from time to time to do work in that sphere. But what it has done is that just that couple of years of being in corporate before becoming an actor and then becoming a comedian gives me a lot more credibility in the corporate market. And as you say, I speak their language. I like them. I'm sympathetic to what they do. I think a lot of people in the arts secretly despise people who work in offices, or sometimes not so secretly, sometimes fairly openly despise people who work in offices. And I think actually, the majority of the jobs are in offices. This is what's making the world go round. These people are doing a fantastic thing. They're working really hard. They have to commute. It's really difficult. I work from home. I have a really nice life. I wouldn't want to go to an office myself, but that's because I'm just not cut out for it. It's not my thing. And luckily I have another thing that I can do that I love to do and I can make money from, so I do that. But, I think it's a world that I can easily see I could have been in as a parallel life. So I think that's why we get on so well when I'm doing my corporate work. I really genuinely like the audience, and I think they can tell.
Yeah, that will make sense. There's another thing which struck me as well. I'd just like you to say a bit more about it. Really, it's not an odd thing to say, but one of the things you said during the podcast with Sarah Archer was that you decided to leave London and come to Devon because you decided you needed a marriage and a mortgage. And I can see the mortgage might be easier with Devon house prices, but why did you decide finding suitable men was easier in Devon?
That's such a good question. I feel really famous now that you're referring back to a previous interview. I feel like Boris Johnson is going to have to refer back to all the things he's ever said before. Well, I always say to people that I went husband hunting in the provinces, and that's because I was in London and I was single. And I'd given up acting at the time. I was 30. And I went on all those things like speed dating and drinks and things. The internet wasn't quite the thing it is now, although it was certainly going. Match.com was alive and well and horrible. So I did try a bit of internet dating then, but I was having no success at all in London. And that's because a lot of people in London are just passing through. They're not wanting to settle down there. They're always thinking about the next step, and maybe they'll move away, or maybe they'll meet someone and then move away. But I found that all the men, because I'm interested in men as it turns out, they were all looking over my shoulder for the next thing, for the next best thing. I mean, I'll give you an example. I went speed dating, and I sat opposite the next guy, and it was the guys that would move on, and they only had to talk for 2 minutes to each girl. And during the 2 minutes that this guy had to speak to me, he started chatting up the girl next to me.
Dear,
That's what I mean. It was so rude, and people were so harsh and, not really willing to give you the time of day. And I just came to the conclusion, I'm not going to meet somebody in London. Now, I'm not from London. I was born in Devon and I was raised in Sheffield. We went to Sheffield when I was 2, so I have a kind of dual identity. I've got 2 passports and feel like a southerner and a northerner. And I just felt, I'm not from this place. I need to go somewhere where it's friendlier and where people will take their time to get to know you. And I thought, why not go to Devon? That's where I was born. I haven't spent any real time there since I was born there. And my dad was down in Devon, and I thought it was a really good opportunity to spend some time with him, which it was. In the end, it was really great. So that's why I went.
Right,
Yeah.
so the sad truth is it's not the fantastic reputation of men in Devon, it's the negative side of London, really, that's driving this situation.
Well, there is a lot to be said for Devon then. Yeah, I am now married to one. So it was a happy ending. You know, when I first came down to Exeter, the very first thing I saw was in the gap in the trees everywhere. You could see this white castle in the distance.
Right.
And I said, what's that? And people said, of course, it's the Halden Belvedere. Do you know that?
The Belvedere.
Yeah.
Yes.
At Halden
Yes.
Hill. So they said, oh, it's the Halden Belvedere. And I said, oh, do they do weddings? And people said, yes, they do. And I said, do you know, I am going to get married there when I'm 35. At this point, I was 30. I said, I'm going to get married there when I'm 35. And they'd say to me, do you have a boyfriend? And I'd say, no, that's a minor detail. I'm going to walk up that aisle when I'm 35. And interestingly, I did. 2 weeks before my 36th birthday, I walked up the aisle at the Halden Belvedere and I got married. Yeah.
Wow, that's brilliant. So you have got a plan and you work it through.
Yeah, I mean, I had to pay the guy, but that's not the point. I met my husband on the internet. Yeah, so it worked out. I mean, I bought him on eBay, but I don't think that counts. But I did. I managed to meet him on the internet, even though we both lived in Devon. In fact, it was about 2 years into Exeter that I met him, and I was quite settled there, you know. And I can't remember if I'd bought my flat. Oh no, the night we had a date, it was like a Friday night, and we had our first date, and we met on the internet. The very next day, I was going to view a flat, which I went on to buy, and he also bought a separate flat. Because it was just too early in the relationship to buy a flat together, don't you think, after one date?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Celia. Just to say, it's my colleague John is going to be commenting here and there.
Hi.
And John's like, not too late, not too early.
It's very, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're being very sensible in his view.
No, but then it rather ties you in sort of living separately, and then we lived separately, but you could have dug a tunnel between our two flats. You know, we just kind of lived between the two flats, and he didn't move in though until just before we were married. It was a very Christian way of doing things, and that was nice. And so we courted, we dated, and we were about 3.5 years until we actually got married. Yeah, which was a little too long for me. I was starting to get to the end of my tether, which he knew, so we had to give in the end. I was determined to make that deadline, you see, still being 35, going up the aisle. And he was happy with the Halden Belvedere as a venue, luckily, because I was like, basically, I said, that's it. If you don't want to marry me there, you're clearly not the right person for me. And I let him have the reception where he wanted it, and that was at the Exeter Golf and Country Club.
Oh, right.
Over the 18th hole. Yeah. Because he was a keen golfer back then. I was a golf widow for much of my early part of my marriage. I've given it up now. We're in London. But yeah, so it was a very happy ending.
So you really do know Exeter and Devon pretty well.
I lived there for nearly 11 years. Yeah. So I moved to Exeter when I was 30, and then moved back to London when I was 40. Brought my husband with me. Glad to know he's still here, and he got a job in the government here. So, in fact, Boris Johnson was his boss for a bit. He works for the Foreign Office. So he's had Boris Johnson as a boss and Jeremy Hunt. You think maybe he's done something in a former life, to deserve these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a civil servant now. He doesn't work on the political side. He's in procurement at the FO.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he used to work for Devon County Council when I met him. He's very much a government man through and through. And then he got that job, and we moved here, what must be now 4 years ago. Yeah, so that I could go back into entertainment. That was the idea, and that is what I have done.
So when did the public speaking start? Was that something you could do from Devon as a job, as a career?
I started it in Devon, yes. My first ever paid engagement was 2009, and I was paid by a women's network to go and speak for, I think, 45 minutes. So I was paid actual cash money for that, and I was delighted, that anyone would pay, because there's a lot of free speaking about. You can always speak at a network or even at conferences for free. which is a good idea to market yourself if you have a small business and you want to get the word out, or even if you're employed in a large business. You often see banks and those kind of businesses, they might do a speech. They're trying to encourage some kind of action from the audience, like sign up with us or whatever. So I was doing a mix of free and paid speaking in Devon from 2009. So I've been a professional paid speaker now for 10 years. But it was hard to make it into a full business down there, really anywhere other than London and perhaps the Midlands, where there's a lot of conferencing in the Midlands. I'm often travelling up to Coventry or Birmingham because there are big arenas there, much bigger venues for conferencing, and you can bring everyone in from all over the country. Unless you're London or Midlands, there is not much of a market, in my understanding, in speaking. You'll always be travelling to do it and not doing much of it locally. And I just thought, I can't really make this work. And I certainly couldn't go into comedy professionally from Devon. You can't. There comes a point where if you want to get paid to do comedy, sadly, London is about it. And I think there is a bit of a scene in some other big cities, and I'm sure people will tell me where things are thriving. But I hear a lot that London is kind of hogging all of the scene, for acting and comedy and for the performing arts. So for me, it was getting really essential that I moved back here. And I'm just really lucky that my husband was in agreement and that he was willing to get a job here and come back with me. We nearly split up, not over that, but it looked a bit dicey for a while. But then we managed to get the twin tracks of our lives to run in parallel, and we've come up, and now we've bought a place in London. So we have a really nice life up here. It's good. Of course, I miss Exeter though. Miss everyone there.
Yeah, but it's not too far away. And just moving on to the show that you're doing, because we can come back to all these other things. But would that explain why the Camden Fringe is so strong? Because I've just been trying to find out a bit about the background to what's going on. And your show's going to do one night in Exeter and then 2 nights in Camden during August.
Yeah, 3 nights in Camden.
3 nights, sorry.
Yeah, and that's about the longest run that they'll give you, I think, in Camden Fringe. So it's run by 2 women called Michelle and Zena, and it's their 14th year of running the Camden Fringe. So it's a very established festival now. But like you, I didn't really know anything about it until this year. I hadn't really heard of it because I wasn't from London, and I've only been in comedy for 5 years, so it takes a long time to kind of gather all the information. And I've been up to Edinburgh Festival in August, which you do a run for the whole month in Edinburgh, usually every single day. And I've done Edinburgh now. I try and do it every other year, so I'm going to go up next year. But I went last year and then 2 years before that to Edinburgh. So for me, my whole comedy scene tends to revolve around going up to Edinburgh, and that's what I know about. Like, that's what most people know about because it's a really big festival. But in fact, Camden set up this 14 years ago because there was a gap in the market, really, because a lot of people were away doing Edinburgh, and it gave a chance to put on a festival in August in London for performers who weren't doing Edinburgh, and also for audience that weren't doing Edinburgh. So it gave them something to do over the summer, and they didn't think it would take off as much as it has, but it is really huge. There are 300 shows in it this year, which is a significant number, and they do these shorter runs for performers so that everybody can have a go. It allows more people to be in it, and also it makes it much more affordable than Edinburgh, because Edinburgh can really break the bank. Many people have learnt the hard way that Edinburgh really often runs into the thousands and thousands of pounds. I mean, I have a friend who did a whole month in Edinburgh and invested £10,000 last year.
Good gracious.
It's an enormous business, and it's very expensive for performers to do it, and I don't think the public are aware of that, and I think they should be. And they wonder why the ticket prices keep going up, and that's because performers can't make it pay. So whereas a lot of tickets in Edinburgh were £5 back in the day, they're now, last time I went to Edinburgh last year, our ticket price was £12, because that's the only way we could even hope to break even on our show costs, and that's not counting accommodation, which is £1,000 plus for the month to go up and live in another city. So Camp is doing a really great thing because I think it's offering a different experience for performers. It's offering a really nice experience for audiences that want to try out, take a punt on a few different shows that they might not otherwise see. And the tickets are quite a range of prices. Mine are on at £6, £5 concession. So that's a much lower ticket price for me. I'd normally put my shows somewhere between £10 and £15. Always have done. But when it's a festival, it's a bit of a different deal. You know, people want to take a gamble. They might not know you, but they say, oh, well, it's quite cheap. You know, we'll come and take a look at it. And that's how you get to know a new audience. You know, from a performer's point of view, although I will make very little money from Camden Fringe activity, I'll probably break even and that's about it. But it's not really about that. It's about meeting a whole load of new people that otherwise normally wouldn't have seen it. And that's really nice because I've got a bit of an Exeter following, but I don't have much of a London following. I really need to work on that. So this is a great time to do it.
So would you explain the Bill Murray is not in Camden, is it? It's from I couldn't really make out where it was.
I know, it's a really fair question. It's the nearest tube is Angel, so it's in Islington. It's equidistant between Angel Tube Station and Highbury and Islington Tube Station. It's quite off the beaten track, the Bill Murray, but it has made a very good name for itself. And in fact, it has very famous people playing there. I'm probably the least famous person that is there. Currently, they've got Josie Long doing her previews, Rob Delaney, James Beach, Sarah Pascoe goes there, Callie Beaton. So many good performers who are on the television and radio, and then me. I photographed a poster with my name on it with all these people.
Right.
Nobody knows who I am, but here I am. So I feel very lucky to be on the Bill Murray. It's quite a break for me, actually. And I have a director on board as well who's fantastic, and he's involved with Bill Murray. And so that's really been a great tie-in for me. And, so they have a twin sister pub called the Camden Head, which again isn't in Camden, although there is a Camden Head in Camden. But the Camden Head in Islington and the Bill Murray, between the two of them, they run something called Angel Comedy. And Angel Comedy programs a lot of shows per week. I think they sometimes do about 3 shows a night, and a lot of that comedy is free. And so they've built up this very big following in London of people that want to see good quality comedy but not pay for it or just pay in the bucket at the end. And they've done really well for themselves. So that's why I'm there. Camden Fringe started at the Etc. Theatre, which I guess might be in Camden. It started in one venue, and then it went to the Hen and Chickens, I believe, which is another pub theatre. And so it genuinely did start in Camden, and then it's just grown. So it goes as far as King's Cross. Some of the venues are out there, and Islington. Anything that if you drew a wide circle around Camden, that would be the Camden.
So all is
about Bristol,
Oh yeah, Bristol's sort of on the edge of London, isn't it? Exeter's definitely further out.
Yeah.
All these words just seem to have broader and broader meaning. So, this Exeter Fringe Theatre, you'd think it was the fringe of something in Exeter, but that doesn't seem to be the case at all.
And again, that's a very good call. It did make me laugh when they said it was a fringe festival rather than a festival. Really, it's just a festival, isn't it? Because the reason the Edinburgh Fringe was called the Fringe is that the Edinburgh Festival is a real thing in its own right. There's an international festival that takes place in August in Edinburgh, and that is much higher ticket prices, much bigger venues, great big names, big orchestras and musical acts coming from, America, Australia and so on. But I mean, I never even see any of that when I'm there in Edinburgh. And then the Fringe was just a little thing that was on the site, and it used to be tiny in Edinburgh. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where people have forgotten that there is a festival that it's on the fringe of. They don't even know that. The public often have no idea that there is anything other than the Fringe happening. So that's the reason that all the other festivals call themselves Fringe, That's one reason. But the other reason is, in London, when I was an actor in my 20s, there was always a fringe scene, and that meant it was largely unpaid or paid just on a profit share basis, whereas you had then paid theatres. A bit like you have West End and off West End and fringe. And that's how it's always been categorised. And everybody knows that fringe is basically no money, or not much money, but also it's experimental, it's new work, it's new performers, it's a chance to do work that perhaps isn't so mainstream as well. So you get kind of a combination of contemporary dance and puppetry, that isn't, to be honest, probably going to be on TV on a Saturday night competing with Michael McIntyre's Saturday night show. But it's work, it's art, it's interesting, people want to go and see it, people want to make that art. And that's where all the fringe scene is there to encourage people to keep making art. So that's a really great thing, and I'm all for it.
So where
on TV as well, I mean, quite clear. But I'll always love the fringe.
So where does the comedy fit in, or is the comedy becoming more plot driven? Because I notice your show has got a definite theme running through it of this daughter that you've discovered.
Yeah.
That you left behind in Paris some time ago. Is that or something like that?
Yes. The storyline is that I have a fling in Paris when I'm 19, and then I come home and I think I'm pregnant, but I'm not, and then I just decide to have the kid anyway. But it's an imaginary child, obviously.
Right.
And I raised this daughter, and today she's 25 years old. I've raised her single-handedly for all of this time. But of course it's complicated now because I'm a Westminster wife these days. And so I've kind of got an Anglo-French love child in the closet, that no one knows about. And it could cause a scandal. And then there's Brexit looming. So I'm worried that, is she going to be allowed to live here or there? Or I don't know. It's all very complicated. So I do talk about that and make jokes about, there was a way from it. It's genuinely true. Like, I have always imagined having a daughter. So there's a lot of truth in it. Always wanted to have a daughter, never did, never did it. And so there is real truth to that, although it's silly, it's a kind of magical conceit. But it's also rooted in my interest in child rearing and parenting, and also trying to be a performing artist, but also being a parent, and how almost impossible that is, and how I made a choice not to have real kids so that I could be an actress, so that I could be a comedian, so I could be self-employed. I didn't have kids, really sacrificed that so that I could do my career. The kind of question of can you have it all? I said no, you can't. You need to choose. So I decided to choose. And then it's about reflecting on, could I have done it though? Could I still end up where I am now? And I talk a little bit about the film Sliding Doors, about how, do you remember that film? Gwyneth Paltrow and John Hannah.
Oh, yes.
And she's late for work one day, and then time splits, and she leaves these two parallel lines, and in one of them she loses an earring, and then the other one she dies. So, yeah, but, that's not the point. It's about being in a parallel life and making choices, and what difference do the choices make? Do you always end up in the same place anyway? She ends up with John Hannah, whatever she does. So it's like, it's interesting.
But it's just going back a bit. It's taking comedy or stand-up comedy quite a long way towards plot and character and so forth, isn't it?
Yes, and I would say that's the way it has gone. So comedy's had a very interesting history, and what was alternative comedy back in the day when you had Alexi Sale and Paul Merton and Ben Elton and people like that. They were doing alternative comedy, but that alternative comedy is now just mainstream stand-up comedy. And around them, society has changed. It's become much more permissive. People much more openly swear, name body parts, talk about sex. Now there isn't really an alternative. It just is, everything goes. And so I think comedy's come to a point where it's looking for something else, because that has been done to death. They're just jokes. now you've made jokes about everything. It's almost like, it's not that there's nothing else to make jokes about, but it feels as though that part of the cycle of comedy is maturing and perhaps tipping over. And what it's tipped over into is a sort of narrative-driven comedy. That's what people are interested in now, which is what I've created here. And also, there's a bit more tolerance towards that being a bit more theatrical, which mine certainly is. There's a little bit of theatre in it. I'll use props. I use a bit of costume. Some of it will feel like a one-woman show more than it feels like stand-up comedy. Slightly more scripted. Hopefully it doesn't sound scripted, but it's more of a one-woman show than it is a stand-up hour, classic stand-up hour. And I think comedy's certainly headed that way, but also that's the kind of work that I like to do. You've got to honour what you want to do as an artist as well. And I find that blend really interesting. And I think people are looking for truth as well. They want some truth. So the truth about me having wanted kids, but not having them, the agony that women can go through and men go through actually deciding if they want kids or not. That sort of expose, people are definitely looking for that now. That's the stuff of award-winning shows.
So do you think a lot of the comedy, what is advertised as comedy during the Exeter Fringe, will be similar to that?
There isn't a lot of comedy in the Exeter Fringe, I don't think. It's quite a nice spread across the performing arts of all different disciplines. I think there's only a clutch of it. I know some of the acts and not others, so some will be more like pure stand-up. There's a guy called Al LaBelle, who I've been on stage with, actually, been on the line-up with. He's coming, pretty sure he's coming. He's American. He has kind of writing credit with Seinfeld and things like that, and I think, and he's been on Letterman and things like that. He's pretty well known in the States. So he will do a much more classic stand-up hour, I would think, because that's what I've seen him doing on the circuit here with me. But there are a couple of ones that look interesting, I think, with female artists that look a bit more narrative-driven or thematic, like mine as well, that I think will, I'm going to try and go and see some, but I don't know how much time I've got because I don't live in it, and I'm trying to come down for a few more days and see a few things, but I'll do my best to get around them and support other people. And hopefully the other acts will get to see me as well. So that'd be really lovely to join up in that way.
Yeah, well, we'll try and follow it. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be other comments on Fonnet FM during the next couple of weeks, and we'll have some sort of conversation in this same time slot next week. So we'll see how that all goes as it goes along.
Yeah, it's great to support it because it is the first one, so they're trying to get it off the ground, and it's the team that ran the Bike Shed Theatre. Yes,
well, just on the Bike Shed, just out of interest, what you make of this? John and I were at the Bike Shed a couple of summers ago because they gave the whole space to Phonic to this station for a week, 2 weeks, something like that, in August. We were allowed to use it for whatever we wanted to do with it because they said we've got to close down in August. Nothing ever happened in August. The theatre is dead. It's well known. Just give up. And I thought that was very strange. I couldn't really believe it. But have you heard this story before in theatre?
Yeah, because everyone goes on summer holidays, or they go to Edinburgh. A lot of the acts camp and go to Edinburgh. So there are so many people that go to Edinburgh, both in terms of punters and particularly performers, that you won't have many performers left in your city across the UK, as it were, to perform. They're going to Edinburgh. But also, I think somewhere like Devon, it must be true that people basically want to be on the beach, surely. I don't think they want to be in a dark theatre. There isn't quite the same draw. I mean, I'm hoping we'll get people in for this Fringe. It's the beginning of the school holidays now, and so the kids have broken up from school. So we'll see how many attendees we get, but hopefully they will get to go to the beach in the day and then come to something in the evening.
Yeah, I would have thought so, because I thought it was too pessimistic as a view, when we were very grateful for the space. But well, we'll see what happens, because also the people who've gone off to the beach, there's going to be also people coming from outside Devon will be here, and they'll be looking for something to do in the evenings, won't they? So
Yeah.
I think it could work very well. And as you say, the Camden one has worked.
Yeah, and you have to run it more than once to make something work, and I'm sure they will if they can do that. They'll carry on. But Camden is 14 years in. In the first year, it would have only had a handful of shows in one venue, and they didn't think they were going to carry on. It was just an experiment for them. But it just took off, and that's the way they went with it. But you have to do something again and again and again, and then it does catch fire. It's the thing. I find that with being in comedy myself. I can't just turn up and do one gig. I have to keep turning up over and over again, keep saying this is what I do, keep churning out shows, and eventually people have gone, oh, you do comedy, oh, okay, and they've cottoned onto it, and now that's what they think I do, and it's been great, that the market has come round to that opinion. But it does take a few years, I think, to get some traction on anything. So I really hope that they have a great fringe, and I hope that they stick with it, because I think it's a really good thing for Exeter to have more of a promotion of the art and more opportunity for local acts to take part in a festival when, as we discussed, it's enormously expensive to go to Scotland to do it. Why would you do that? You could do it on your doorstep. I think it's really great.
Well, yeah, and also what you were saying about the fringe mentality, if you like. I mean, if it's a big budget item and it's all, very intense pressure as to whether it's going to work out or not, there's a lot less you can do with it, isn't it? Whereas Exeter, certainly at this stage, there's more scope for experimenting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really great. I think you've got to foster art from the ground up. And let's face it, there's been a lot of cutbacks in schools. I mean, they seem to be cutting everything, like cutting PE, physical education, and also cutting time to let children create and be artistic. And that really worries me. I'm really still passionate about education as being an important piece in this. I think